Just a few seconds.
Somebody has something on in the background?
We're live.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City Council meeting of April the 14th, 2020. Madam Clerk.
Good evening. Prior to roll call, the city attorney would like to make an announcement to the council regarding the teleconferencing of this meeting.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to make clear for the record of this meeting, and it should be reflected in the minutes, that the governor has issued executive orders relaxing the requirements pertaining to remote meetings under the Brown Act. The executive orders authorize this council to hold public meetings by teleconference during the COVID-19 crisis. I previously went over the specific provisions of the Brown Act that have been temporarily amended or suspended in order to allow for this meeting to take place by teleconference. And this meeting will comply with all such provisions. Madam Clerk, it would now be appropriate for you to conduct roll call, after which I would again ask the mayor to recognize me to confirm certain matters for the record.
Councilmember Hudson,
Here.
Councilmember Alone,
Here.
Councilmember Perkins,
Here.
Vice Mayor Zafar,
Here.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Here. City Attorney Lyson.
Thank you. I would now like to ask the mayor, vice mayor, and council members 3 questions. We're going to do this a little bit more quickly this time. I'll ask all 3 questions, and if the answer is no to any one of the 3 when I'm finished, just go ahead and raise your hand or indicate in some other way that I can see that the answer is no. First question is, can everyone hear me well?
Yes.
The second is, have you been able to hear our proceedings up until now?
Yes.
And the third is, were you able to hear all of your fellow council members clearly as they responded to roll call?
Yes.
Yes.
The answer is no. Please indicate. It seems to me that there was no one here indicating no. So the record should reflect that council members have indicated they can hear each other and all these proceedings clearly. And then I would next ask the council to speak up at this time if you have any reason to believe that anyone representing themselves to be a council member or mayor or vice mayor is not who they say they are. Again, hearing no comment, the record should reflect that no council member has expressed any doubt whatsoever that everyone participating by teleconference is the council member they are representing themselves to be. And finally, I will advise the mayor and council and the city clerk that any votes taken during this teleconference portion of this meeting must be taken by roll call. Thank you.
Madam Clerk,
Item 2, Pledge of Allegiance.
would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Of course. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
United
States of
States of
America
America
and
and
to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Item 3, announcements. 3.1, changes and additions to the agenda. There are none this evening. 3.2, if you wish to speak under public comment or regarding an agenda item, please click the raise your hand button located at the bottom of your screen to request to speak when public comment is being taken on the agenda item. You will then be unmuted when it is your turn to speak for up to 3 minutes. After the allotted time, you will then be remuted. 3.2, boards, committee, and commission meetings. All board, committee, and commission meetings have been canceled until further notice. Item 4, public comment.
Items on our public comment are for things that are not on the agenda. Anybody from the audience is welcome to put their hand up and to state they'd like to make a comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We do have 2 written public comments, and it looks like, I'll give it a few more minutes, but no one has raised their hands for public comment. So I'll go ahead and start with the written comment first, and then we can go if anyone has decided they would like to speak.
Thank you.
So the first one is from Helen of Doherty Valley. In a bio war, do you buy PPE from your bio enemy? 2, how are you acquiring made in America PPE? When our Governor Newsom declares California a nation, as in the People's Republic of California, how do you declare? Disclaimer, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please make your declaration to our citizens and reprimand Newsom for his treasonous declaration against the citizens of America and California. Protect your image and voice from being misused or stolen by the Communist Chinese Party lurking behind Zoom. Please find a safe American virtual meeting platform for our city council meetings, or I can only type you my comments. Please acquire enough American-made PPE for our city staff in preparation to open up our city safely soon again. I refuse to live as a farm animal of Newsom and his Democratic peers after 5/1/20. I am tired of a life consisted of eat, sleep, repeat, pay taxes for him to spend on made in China goods and forcing us to vote by mail so his invincible Democrat power may continue to reign. Enough already. If after 6 weeks of hiding, we still cannot best this virus, we need to beat Newsom to be humans who can think, question, dream, aspire, work toward a goal in life, and embrace life again. Thank you. The second written comment is from Joyce Carr. Good evening. Some very important information concerning the coronavirus and 5G EMF radiation has come to my attention. Wuhan, China is the coronavirus epicenter. The unsanitary live animal markets are seen as a likely starting point for this virus. Wuhan has live animal markets for decades and everything has stayed localized. However, in 2019, 5G emitters came to Wuhan, and as many as 20,000 5G emitters have been placed throughout the city. The next thing we know, they have a pandemic which immediately spreads throughout the world. One more example of how dangerously little we know about health effects of 5G. Prolonged or close proximity exposure to EMF radiation is known to cause biochemical disruption in all forms of life: humans, animals, insects, plants, and the most microscopic organisms. 5G emitters add a new and little studied RF to that EMF radiation. Thus, under the right circumstances, this could have opened the door for a mutant novel virus to take off. A respected expert on this subject, Dr. Martin Paul, has stated that putting in millions of 5G antenna without proper safety tests is about the stupidest idea in the history of the world. Now more than ever, with all growing concerns about the safety of 5G, and it makes it absolutely clear we must demand the necessary scientific studies on its safety before even considering it in our neighborhoods or schools. Our world is struggling right now with an unbelievable situation. We do not need to add anything more. Thank you, Joyce Carr. And it looks like no one else has requested to speak under public comment.
Great, okay. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item 5, consent calendar.
Items on the consent calendar are deemed routine in nature. Anybody from the audience or from staff or a councilman can ask for an item to be pulled for discussion. Is there a motion?
I'd like to
I'll
pull
move the
5.2 and
consent calendar,
5.3.
5.1 through 5.5.
There was a motion. Again, say it again, Scott.
I'll move the consent calendar 5.1 through 5.5.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second, but I heard that Dave, I think Dave wanted to pull a couple items.
5.2 and 5.3.
Okay,
Okay.
you want to amend your
I'll move
motion?
5.1, 5.4, and 5.5.
I'll second that.
Okay, it has been moved by Mr. Perkins, seconded by Mr. Alone. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Hudson,
Aye.
Councilmember Alone. Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zafar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Yes.
Thank you. The consent calendar for 5.1, 5.4, 5.5 has been approved 5-0. Item 6, special presentations, there are none. Item 7, deferred consent items. Item 5.2, resolution number 2020-027, adopting a list of projects for fiscal year 2020/21 funded by Senate Bill 1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017.
If I can short circuit this, what I'm really interested in is page 12, Alcosta Boulevard. And some of it's light rehab, some of it's heavy rehab. But the big question is it the intention to do all of this, all 8, 9, 10 sections, all between July 2021 and December 2021?
Good evening, Councilmember Hudson. It is the intention to complete it during that period of time. It may go past that into the spring of the following year.
Okay, I'll move 5-2.
I'll second.
Been moved by Mr. Hudson. It's been seconded by Mr. Perkins. Madam Clerk, roll call vote.
Councilmember Hudson,
Aye.
Councilmember Alone, Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Safar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
Thank you. Item deferred consent calendar 5.2 has been approved 5-0. And then item 5.3, resolution number 2020-028, authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with West Coast Arborist for tree maintenance services for a 5-year contract beginning July 1st, 2020, and an amount not to exceed $6,500,000.
You want me to short circuit this one too? What caught my attention is page 15 under fiscal analysis. And it says, and a contingency $1,075,000 for new areas of acceptance in Doherty Valley, citywide areas, and emergency unforeseen work. I don't have a problem with the emergency unforeseen work, but I think if we're going to spend this million for new areas, that the council should, especially in light of what we heard earlier today, the council should be very aware that we are spending this.
Yeah, and
I
if
have a
I could make a
question.
comment on that.
5-year contract, Maria?
Pardon me?
This is a 5-year contract, so that $1 million of contingency is likely to be spread over some or all of that if it's spent at all.
Yes, that's correct. So that amount actually equates to $215,000 per year.
Okay, thank you.
So I
Vice
guess,
Mayor Savar.
yeah, I had a question around the 6 million. What does it get us? Again, is it because we're doing, what is the regularity of the services that we're providing? And I wanted a little bit more detail before signing off, especially in a time like this, signing off on a 6 million contract for the next 5 years without kind of knowing those kind of details. And is there a way, you know, if we decide we want to do, I don't know how frequently we do our tree trimming and things like that. And is there a way to save, you know, especially after our budget discussions today? So that would be, I would love to know some of those details.
Of course. So the cost in the contract is 5.425 million plus a contingency of 1.075. So the 5.425 million over 5 years, that equates to about a little over $1 million a year. And that is the cost for our routine maintenance for all of our trees in the city. So we have over 48,000 trees that are owned by the city, and we have a grid pruning cycle that we do about every 4 years, and we go throughout the entire city over a 4-year period, and that is the cost to do that. So that $1 million does cover that. That is why we have costs for contingency for unforeseen or other items where there are trees down that are not part of the routine maintenance. So if we were to look at costs to save in that area, what we would be doing is looking at extending that cycle by maybe 5 years, 6 years, and we would assess that.
I'll
And I
move
also
5.
read there's a GIS system that helps us keep track and how.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the reason why we are using West Coast Arborists, because we have a robust it's called Arbor Access, and it tracks every tree, all the inventory of all the trees when they're knocked down, the size, the location, and that's how we go through the city systematically to deal with all the trees.
Dave, you had a question?
I really am focusing on, I'm fine with it for emergency unforeseen work. But I get where Maria's going on this, and I'll move 5.3.
Is there a
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Alone. Moved and seconded, seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you take a roll call?
Councilmember Hudson,
Aye.
Councilmember Alone,
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Safar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
Thank you. Consent 5.3 has been approved 5-0. Item 8, adoption of ordinances. We have none. Item 9, city council appointments. 9.1, Arts Advisory Committee appointment.
Hello, Kathy.
Hello, good evening, Mayor, City Council. It's my pleasure, of course, to be with you again today to do several appointments for your consideration. So we have 3 in a row. We're going to start with the Arts Advisory Committee. So the Arts Advisory Committee consists of 7 community members and 2 alternate members. Currently, we have 4 vacancies consisting of 3 regular positions and 1 alternate position. The city clerk announced the vacancies. Notice were placed on city website and next door. We had 5 applications that were interviewed by a subcommittee of the commission. The commission reviewed the recommendation at their March 11th meeting and are recommending appointment of Jennifer McCoy, David Owens, and Ofer Dalal to serve as regular members on the Arts Advisory Committee with terms to expire in March of 2022, and Mohammed Ranjabarzadegi to serve as alternate number 1 with a term to expire March of 2022.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions or motion?
I move the appointments as proposed.
I can second.
Proposed and seconded by Vice Mayor Safar. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Hudson,
Aye.
Councilmember Alone,
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Safar,
Yes.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
9.1 has been approved 5-0. 9.2, Library Advisory Committee appointment.
Okay, in the same vein, the Library Advisory Committee consists of 5 community members and 2 alternate members. Currently, we have 3 vacancies consisting of 2 regular positions and 1 alternate. The city clerk announced the vacancies. Notices were placed on the city website and next door, and we received 3 applications. The applicants were interviewed by a subcommittee of the commission, and the commission is recommended at their March 11th meeting that you appoint Cindy Alpert and Kathleen Gilchrist to serve as regular members on the Library Advisory Committee with terms to expire in March of 2022, and Luz Gomez to serve as alternate number 2 with a term to expire in March of 2022.
Thank you. Any comments or motion?
I'll move item 9.2.
I can second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Hudson,
Aye.
Councilmember Alone, Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Safar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
9.2 has been approved 5-0. 9.3, Senior Citizens Advisory Committee appointment.
All right, last one. So the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee consists of 7 community members and 2 alternate members. Currently, there are 4 vacancies consisting of 3 regular positions and 1 alternate position. The city clerk announced vacancies. Notices were placed on the city website and next door. 4 applications were submitted for the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. The applicants were interviewed by a subcommittee of the commission. The commission reviewed the recommendation at their March 11th meeting and are recommending appointment of Molly Abreu, Wayne Mortensen, and Joan Ernst to serve as regular members on the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee with a term to expire in March of 2022, and Naeem Katabi to serve as alternate number 1 with a term to expire in March of 2022.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there any questions or a motion?
I'll move
Staff recommendation.
You both tied.
Oh, I'll do second.
Okay, Mr. Perkins made the motion, Mr. Hudson the second. Any other discussion? See no further discussion. Roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Hudson,
Aye.
Councilmember Alone,
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Safar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
9.3 has been approved 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Item 10, approval of minutes. Before you are the city council regular meeting minutes for March 24th for your approval.
I can
Is there a
move.
motion?
I can move.
Second.
Okay,
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussions, corrections?
Who-
Seeing,
Who is the second? I'm sorry.
I was,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Alone.
Bill is.
My apologies. I will
Point
announce
to Dave.
them. All right, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Hudson,
Aye.
Councilmember Alone.
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Safar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 10.1 has been approved 5-0. Item 11, unfinished business, there is none. Item 12, new business. 12.1, resolution number 2020-031, authorizing the mayor to sign a letter to the governor supporting a request for emergency state funding for solid waste and recycling service providers. Staff report by Public Works Program Manager David Kruger.
Hello, David.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, solid waste services are essential services that are vital to public health. The current COVID crisis is causing some financial difficulty for our solid waste service provider, ACI, which might impact their future ability to provide these services. Just to be clear, currently, all of their services are being provided per contract. There's been no interruption or change in service at this time, but they're concerned about the future. The reason that they're concerned is that unfortunately, many businesses are canceling solid waste service or reducing service due to the shelter in place. And that reduces ACI's revenue from those accounts. And even though they don't have to collect from those accounts as much, their savings in cost is not as great as their reduction in revenue. So they're facing a financial difficulty there. A second financial concern that they're having is that there may be other businesses who still need service and residents that definitely need to have continued service, but who may not be able to pay for the service in the future due to the economic impacts of COVID-19. So we have an essential service that we can't stop providing, but the customers may not be able, not all the customers may be able to be continuing to pay for it. Now, the main way that they could get additional revenue would be through rates, but this obviously would not be the time to raise customer rates. So instead, they're looking for state money for assistance. ACI is a member of an industry group, the Resource Recovery Coalition of California, and that group is lobbying the state for emergency funding because all of their members are in the same kind of situation that ACI is looking at. Therefore, they have asked the city if we would support their effort to get emergency funding from the state. And staff is recommending approval of this resolution, authorizing the mayor to sign a letter to the governor supporting a request for emergency state funding for solid waste recycling service providers. Are there any questions?
David, thank you for that summary. Really quickly, this is something which is industry-wide and probably applies to most cities that are being serviced by trash companies?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions? Use your, raise your hand on the, Dave.
Yeah, I'd support this resolution. We're going to be in real trouble with the commercial end of this if we don't get these people some money. And I darn sure do not want to go out to the people again and raise our rates. I would like to just, if you can't even pen a separate letter or somebody get on the horn to this group that's going to see the governor and tell them, I think it's time to figure out what the real problem is. You can't send this to China anymore. We've got to get past the environmental regulations that stop us from putting in our own, I guess it'd be paper mill, but there's got to be a way to do it. And if we don't, it's the same problem. And this stuff's going to end up in the dump and we don't have the space for it. So I would support resolution 2020-31 and I'll wait to hear what others have to say.
Okay, is that a motion, Dave?
That's a motion.
Okay, is there a second and any other discussion?
If I may,
I'd like to add just a minor thing.
Yes.
In the, it references waste, it doesn't reference recyclables. I think we should specifically mention both. Kind of gets to part of what Dave was talking about, but the solution here is to not dump everything in a landfill. The solution, part of this is to
Really recycle.
make it all work, hopefully. And so to that extent, I'd like to say the waste and recyclables or something along those lines.
So then do you want to add organics as well? Because if we want to be very.
Sure, yeah, waste, recyclables, and organics. I think that's a good suggestion, Sabine.
David.
Yes, I'm good.
By the way, the letter that's drafted on your behalf specifically says loss of income from our solid waste, recycling, and organic service providers. This proposal will support our essential solid waste, recycling, and organic service providers. So I think it does.
Oh, okay. I saw further down, Scott. It was just referencing waste. So sorry about that. I just caught that at the end of that letter.
Yeah, the last paragraph, it doesn't specifically address organics or recyclables, and maybe we adjust the last sentence, but
yeah, if that could be adjusted, I think that'd be helpful.
David, is that something that we can do?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Public comment. Has anybody raised their hand for public comment?
No. I'm
I'd
sorry.
like to,
Yes.
I'd like to open it up for public comment and give people an opportunity to raise their hand. Any other comments before we go? I'm giving a little more time for the publics because they have to respond to this. Martin, I hope that's okay. I like to err on the side of caution and giving plenty of time.
So one of the things, sorry, if you were looking for comments from us.
Yes.
Yeah, I had my hand raised, but I thought we were going to public. The other thing, I think you talked about this, David, as well, but we are losing a lot of this. They are actually, not we are, but ACI is losing a lot of revenue from businesses. And right now we know businesses are not doing that well. And they do take the lion's share of cost from our households. And so that's, I guess, that's one of the big reasons that they're asking for this relief as well.
Thank you, Sabina. You had raised your hand. I thought when you made your other comments, that was it. So I apologize for clicking you off, but raising the hand on your monitor is very helpful for me. So thank you, Sabina. Any other comments? I will go back to the Madam Clerk. Anybody raise their hand for public comment?
Yes, we have one.
Great, let's go to it.
Bill Dobert. Bill?
I haven't done this before, so I'm unmuting myself.
You're doing good.
No, I just want to commend actually Councilmember Hudson. We agree with you. We are held hostage to going overseas, and we don't like it either. Apparently 20, 30, 40 years ago, there were a lot of paper mills in Oregon, and they went out of business. We would love to try to find a way to do that. We have a lot of we have a lot of obstacles with the air board, the water board, and everybody else. We would love to do that. Vice Mayor Zafar, in terms of the commercial sector, we're feeling it like Bishop Ranch is feeling it. We're feeling it like City Center is feeling it. When they don't do well, we don't do well. And we're going to do everything we can. There's other communities, our neighbors, who they've stopped some services. We don't want that to happen. We value our relationship. We're a smaller company. We're going to do everything we can do to keep our drivers employed, which are mostly Teamsters who provide the service. And we don't want to go down that road. We are going to do everything we can do. The monies that we're going for, we would like to find free money in the form of grants. We don't want to have loans. We don't want to have to go down that road. We're going to do whatever we can do to come up with some money to pay our drivers to provide the service. We're genuine about that. And I've never been more proud of our small little company. And you just don't understand our commitment and to this community. I live right next door. I am a recipient of no bulky service from my provider. So we're going to do everything we can do. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Bill. Madam Clerk, any more public comment?
No. He was the
Okay,
only one.
Dave, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, a good idea here, I hope. You know, the Bay Area Regional Collaborative has been looking for something to get their teeth into, and I think this is it. When we, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, tried to get our hands around cap and trade, in other words, we have 5 refineries, the exposure is here, we should be getting the money from cap and trade. The state went and did legislation and took it on their own. They took it away from CARB, and they took it away from the Air District. We're supposed to have the stationary sources. I think if all of the providers got together and explained what this problem is and how it's not going away. I mean, this is just patchwork. We're putting a Band-Aid on a real problem. They don't have anywhere to send this stuff. And the rain comes back when you've got this stuff sitting outside and it's the same problem. So for now, your letter, very well done. I think it serves a purpose, but we're going to have another resolution to support doing something here in the Bay Area. And, you know, they'll be shipping stuff in instead of out. I don't relish the fight, but the reality is if the Air District doesn't want to get behind this, the Air Board doesn't want to get behind this, you know, that's why we have Assembly and Senate, and they have no problem bypassing. Cap and trade does not go through the Air District or the Air Board.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Seeing no other hands up, having finished public comment, there is a motion and there is a second. Correct, Madam Clerk?
I never got a second. I got a Councilmember Hudson made the motion.
I'll second. I have a question if you want mind, Mayor.
Please.
What is it? Through you to Dave. Could you explain what the Bay Area Regional Collaborative is?
The Bay Area Regional Collaborative is, we'll call them the Four Amigos. It's the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, Association of Bay Area Governments, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. We send 4 representatives each, and the Bay Area Conservation, what am I looking, PCDC. And we discuss what the problems are in the Bay Area. Well, Cindy Chavez, supervisor from Santa Clara, which you've probably seen a lot of in the last several weeks because of Santa Clara's problem, is the chair of this. Haggerty's on it out of Alameda County. It's a group that's looking to take something on. And there was a problem with Lehigh Cement Plant, for example. And the Air District has had that, but I mean, the problem just keeps coming back. I mean, if we could have the Lehigh Cement Plant, I can't imagine why we cannot have this paper mill where this recyclable has to go. Otherwise, what are we going to do with it? It's going to end up in the dumps, folks, if we don't find a solution. So to me, the Bay Area Regional Collaborative might be a way to get some spirit behind solving this problem.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Seeing no further comments, and the second was Mr. Alone. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Hudson,
Aye.
Councilmember Alone,
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zafar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 12.1 has been approved 5-0. Item 12.2, public hearing, introduction of ordinance next in line, repealing and replacing section A7-6, Public Works Contracts of Chapter 1, Contract Authority of Division A7, Contract and Procurement Authority of Title A of the Santa Rosa Municipal Code. Staff report by City Attorney Martin License.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. This is a relatively straightforward ordinance amendment. It's intended to address a specific issue pertaining to public works contracting. Recently, staff discovered a discrepancy in a recent public works project bid and decided that the best course of action would be to reject all bids and re-advertise the project. But under state contracting code, when a charter city rejects all bids, it requires city council action unless the city's municipal code says otherwise. So this ordinance is going to allow the city manager to reject all bids and re-advertise a project without having to bring the matter to council. This saves processing time and money, and also it minimizes construction delays. The ordinance was brought before the policy committee. We had our student intern, Endem Imoli, actually do the presentation, and he did a fine job of it. And it's unfortunately, due to the COVID circumstances, he could not be presenting or a part of this procedure tonight. But at the committee meeting, the committee asked for a single change. The original ordinance had identified the public works director as the person that would have the discretion to reject all bids. But the committee asked for a revision to make the city manager the person with the discretion instead. And that change has been incorporated. There's also a couple of cleanup items in this ordinance. The amendment also gives the city manager sole discretion to decide which bid gets the award in the event of a tie for the lowest bid. I should say the unlikely event of a tie. And also to decide what to do if no bids are received at all. That concludes my presentation. Our recommendation is that the city council introduce the ordinance, waive the reading and read by title only, open the public hearing, take public testimony, close the public hearing, and set this ordinance for adoption on April the 28th. Thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, I'll move the introduction of the ordinance next in line, repealing and replacing section A7-6, Public Works Contracts of Chapter 1, Contract Authority of Division A7, Contract and Procurement Authority of Title A of the San Ramon Municipal Code, and waive the rest of the reading. Trying to get my light to stay on.
That's okay. Is
And I
there
do have a
second?
comment if I could add to it there.
Second.
Been
One of the-
seconded, Mr. Olone. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things that we did, just so the people on the council or who may want to speak to this, if they might want to change it, is at policy, it originally came in as the Public Works Director could do this, which the Public Works Director can do, but the authority went through the city manager. And I know I did, and the mayor can speak for himself, felt that the city manager or his designee at his sole discretion. And the reason I did it is, you reorganize and you don't have a public works director, what do? It's always the city manager, that they're his staff, and I don't think it changes anything of what the intent was of the original staff report. And I support this. That's why I make the motion.
Great. I'm going to go to public comment. Madam Clerk, anybody want to speak at public comment?
If you would like to speak under public comment, please raise your hand by using the raise hand button.
And we'll go back to council members. Any comments as we give the public an opportunity to weigh in if they wish to?
Consolidating is power. Burden.
Madam Clerk.
We have no requests to speak.
All right, I will close the public comment. It has been moved. It's been seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just a point of clarification through the mayor, Martin. Can I do this as all one motion and follow up with the amendment to set the ordinance for adoption at the April 28, 2020 City Council meeting, or do we need 2 votes?
You can add that to the motion with another second.
Okay, so
I'll
moved.
second the amended motion.
Okay. It's been, Martin, do we have to read it all over again or we go right to the vote?
You can go right to the vote.
I want to make sure, sir. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I always give this condition on going right to the vote, and that is if the city clerk has feels that she has proper direction on the motion. So.
I do.
Now I know who the boss is.
This
Thank
is
you.
legal.
Darn right.
That's called legally punting.
9 years and you just figured that out?
Madam Clerk, do you feel empowered to do
Yes,
this now?
thank you.
Okay, so go ahead and roll call vote.
Councilmember Hudson,
Aye.
Councilmember Alone.
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zafar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
Thank you. 12.2 has been approved 5-0. Item 13, city manager comments.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I will keep it brief. We continue to monitor the state and local public health orders. The governor came out, if you have not seen it today, and has issued some additional comments on that. From my understanding, there's been no timeline set to it, but there has been some comments regarding that, and I do expect that the county public health will be coming out within the next week or two to address the expiration of the order, the county order on May 3rd. The city continues from an operational perspective to manage the affairs of the city. There's employees that are working remotely and behind the scenes, and we're managing to get by. So that's been a good thing. There's one issue that I'll bring up regarding the mayor's breakfast, which we've pretty much transformed into a kind of a weekly update that's heavily centered around the COVID-19 response and state and local information. There was some original interest in maybe an additional council member joining at that breakfast. That's been difficult and problematic to achieve based on some of the legal hurdles and the rules. So at this point, unless there's any major concern, I think that our recommendation is that we continue with the mayor's breakfast or update with the mayor. If you have specific questions regarding any of the legal issues or any of the rule issues that we're facing, Martin certainly can address them. That's all I have.
I think to your point is that I had hoped that I could have a council member join us and rotate. And I think because of the Brown Act, that may be problematic, and I understand that. But it was important for the council members to know I'd like to have had them join me if it was possible to do without interfering with the Brown Act. So thank you, Joe. Yes, Dave.
Yeah, if I can, Joe, while we have Martin here, now, for some reason, I really like this idea of doing a weekly. I mean, there's so much information coming out and it puts our line in the sand. But if for some reason if the mayor has, I mean, he does work, he can't be there. I'm just assuming it's okay if the vice mayor does sit in for him, correct?
Yes, it's absolutely okay if there's just a single council member or the mayor or the vice mayor that's doing it. The problem that we run into is when we have the potential for a serial meeting.
Yeah. And I would just, I mean, you touch on it however you want to do it. But to me, I mean, I've been on a few committees and it's always much more comfortable if you go to a meeting that you don't have to run for the first time and watch what's going on. So, I mean, it's Sabina's call, but I would think this is going to be done weekly and we don't know that it's over May 4th. And I mean, it's up to her, but I think, because what I just heard is, no, you can't bring a second one, but it may be worth at least bring her to one meeting to see how it goes.
Are you talking about participating or watching?
Well, to me, it's
That's the point
watching.
I was going to make, actually. There is a difference between participating and
Okay,
watching.
yeah, that's, I thought it was fine to watch, you just can't participate.
Exactly.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
got it. Thank you.
I wasn't clear on that either. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, otherwise we all watch the YouTube video at night
Yeah.
instead of Netflix.
Okay.
You forgot to take
Okay.
your sunglasses off, Bill.
Madam Clerk, next item.
Item 14, public comment.
All right, give the public a chance to raise their hand. Anybody have their hand up?
No, it looks like we have no requests to speak. Item 15, city council member and mayor comments.
I'll start with Dave and I'll work across my own screen.
Okay.
Dave, you're first.
If I can, believe it or not, there's still legislation going on besides COVID-19. And there are a couple of these things that have come across the desk just scare the snot out of me. I really would like to get Debbie, if she can, to take a look at SB 902. Phil did some time on Planning Commission, and I'll just, if I can, read this. This bill would provide that a neighborhood multifamily project is a use by right in zones where residential uses are permitted. Anytime we hear those words, use by right, we should be scared to death. It goes on to say CEQA requires a lead agency as defined to prepare or cause to be prepared and certified the completion of an environmental impact report on projects, keyword projects. Another 4 lines of saying what it can do to projects, but the last line, again, should scare the heck out of you. CEQA does not apply to the approval of ministerial projects. This is about putting multifamily in single family developments by right. And that's one that has me worried. Another AB 725, and probably the most important thing, little Taylor came on 4/4/2020. I now have a granddaughter.
Oh, congratulations.
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 Yeah. Phil, Mr. Alone.
First of all, I just want to thank Bill for these mayor's breakfasts. The ones that I have attended over the course of time have been often quite helpful, and transforming this to bring in a lot of local leaders is important. I really have been impressed by the leadership up and down our state, and starting here. So Joe, I think you've got a great team, and I feel quite comfortable with who we handed the reins to a few years ago, and really appreciate that. And I frankly am been quite impressed by the measured nature of our governor. And I think he has done an excellent job. And he has surpassed my expectations, frankly. And I voted for the guy, but he's surpassed my expectations. He's got a tough row ahead of him, but that measured leadership is exactly what we need now. And we've got a tough road ahead of us, and I really appreciate the local leadership and the leadership of the governors in this country. You see what government can do when it really matters. So,
thank you.
I don't have anything else because I've been hanging out in my house.
Councilman Perkins.
Other than my colleagues said, don't watch Tiger King.
True story.
Yeah.
Councilman Perkins.
We've had a few weeks. A lot of these meetings keep going on. I attended the MCE Marine Clean Energy Tech Committee meeting, and a number of important issues came up. First off, we've been tracking the load. The commercial load's way down. The residential load is way up, and they balanced each other. PG&E will be offering customers payment plans over the next 12 months. But one of the problems we have with their current proposal is that they're going to pay themselves first, and they'll pay MCE and the other community choice aggregators a second. And that's a problem we're taking up with the CPUC. Marine Clean Energy is also working on some microgrid development related to the PSPS, and how can they participate and provide input on microgrids. If you can subdivide your grids smaller, than when you do a PSPS, the number of people affected goes way down. The CPUC has also developed, they created a mandate that MCE must provide another 87.5 megawatts of what they call resource or incremental capacity, steel in the ground. This is reserve capacity, and it can be quite expensive to do that, even if it doesn't get, particularly when it doesn't get used. We had a TVTC, Tri-Valley Transportation Council Finance Committee meeting. So we recommend approving the budget going forward. $59,000 in administrative costs, and then development of a new Nexus fee study and strategic expenditure plan will cost another $197,000. The Kimley Horn, Dave, you're probably familiar with Kimley Horn, is going to be doing the Nexus study and the SEP for us. They're very well regarded in the whole transportation analysis and development programs. We're looking for getting an RFP for a new bank. Mechanics Bank has been our banker for a while, but the fees we're paying them seem to be quite high considering we have over $1 million on deposit. You'd think they'd be paying us, but they're not. We currently have a balance of $22 million for projects going forward. The first meeting of the CCTA Innovate 680 met the other day. It's a policy advisory committee made up of some people you probably know. Carla Brown from Pleasanton, Candace Anderson, Robert Storr from Danville, Susan Nowak from Concord, Karen Mitchoff. I say Candace Anderson, Mark Ross, some others that you probably know. They're going to work on a series of strategies. I'm sure Dave couldn't recite them, but this group is going to provide policy guidance going forward on some of these strategies. It'll include things like completing the HOV express lanes all the way from Martinez and the Benicia Bridge all the way to the county line at El Costa. It will be the longest continuous HOV express lane in the state when that happens. Increasing bus efficiencies with bus on shoulder programs, integrated systems, first and last mile connections, and some TDM things. There's lots of work to be done. It's about $500 million in projects. Some of it will come from the county, some from MTC, some from state, and some from federal. So we're hoping that this is a multi-year program, 5 to 10 years to implement all of this, but it is getting started now. Dave will probably be getting updates on this at SWAT and CCTA, but I'm sitting on the Policy Advisory Committee and will provide updates as we make progress. That's what I got.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Sabina, you're on mute.
Unmute.
You're on mute.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
We can hear you now.
Yeah.
Really good. No, we heard it before.
Sorry, first I wanted to kind of start by saying congratulations to everybody who got appointed to the Library Committee, the Arts Committee, and the Senior Advisory Committee. We appreciate you serving. You may not be able to meet right now, but I think once you do, we appreciate you giving your time to these committees and helping the council here. So I also wanted to kind of point out, I don't know how much you guys are looking at the county health services website. I go and look at that dashboard every day because now they've broken it down by cities. So I think the last I saw, San Ramon had 27 positive cases. So we've been doing pretty well. Our cases have been pretty good, but for me, it's every morning I wake up and take a look at that. Alameda's done the same thing now. And I think now if you go to the state website as well, they're breaking down cases more and more and showing, there's more and more data coming out or how many have been tested. And it is really, to what Phil was saying as well, the governor has really come out and, been my hero in terms of, to having a pulse on the situation. I try to watch him if I can every noon when he comes with a live meeting and really talk about where we're going with this, how we are dealing with this. A lot of information that has come out from the state, from the county, from basically our local leaders here has really helped make our lives easier as well. Because for me, it's easy to take in that information to understand what's happening on the state level and then be able to propagate that down to any questions I'm getting asked, and constantly being at this time being asked what we're doing, how we're helping. So I would say that's been especially his press conferences. If you don't kind of watch them, he's live on most days. He's live at noon, and so that's gotten me some good resources, questions, and things like that. I was also going to say one of the resources that I've been tapping into now and send it over to a few folks is about stress, because 4 weeks into this is the 5th week now. People are really getting stressed and kind of feeling it now, and been locked up in their houses and not meeting people, not being social. So that was a topic which was brought up, and there's resources on the county website as well as resources on the state website, which walk you through a playbook of what you can do in terms of mental health and maintaining that, and then how to deal with your kids during this time, because that's becoming stressful for people. And I have colleagues that have younger kids. Both the parents are working. They may not necessarily live in a very big house, and so they're dealing with the stress of making sure these kids are studying as well as doing their homework. And so it sounds all great that we have this virtual classroom, but it's certainly been tough on parents that are both working and have younger kids that are in elementary school and things. And Scott, thanks for bringing up the microgrid part of it. I think that's something I've been talking to Joe and Stephen for a while, and one of the companies that I reference them to is now making, actually fixing ventilators for the state, the Bloom Energy. But I certainly think microgrids is something we should be exploring. It's something which was brought up even at the mayor's conference in DC, where there were, there was a lot of emphasis on taking a look at that, especially with the PSPS stuff going on. So
they're looking particularly at microgrids, and particularly as they can support people who are vulnerable in hospitals and senior health facilities and things like that, and making sure that those are somehow isolated so that they can receive power when other sections are not. Yeah. And so that's one of the first places they're looking, is those vulnerable populations. Your house and my house, not so much, but there are plenty of places around that are in much greater need of power on a health basis than ours.
Right, and generally these work good in clusters. So if you have 4 or 5 buildings in a cluster, microgrid works really well around, for that. But yeah, I think at a city level, I know Joe and Stephen were exploring something. So certainly something we should be talking about.
Just a note on that, Council Member or Vice Member Safar, we are working with getting a tour actually of that location. Unfortunately, we're not able to take tours at this point in time, but Stephen is connected with that resource you gave him, and we'll report back once we get to a point where we can leave the city and go take tours.
Yeah, and I think that they are making, fixing the ventilators right now. So they've changed their operations.
Yeah, so we're on the back shelf for right now.
Yeah. We did have the Arts Commission meeting, which was nice to just connect with one of the boards and see everybody. And one of the things, which I think I referred to in our budget meeting as well, we're trying to find a way how the Arts Commission can tap into some of the funding.
The Arts Foundation?
Arts Foundation, sorry.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, the Arts Foundation. So we're trying to find ways that we can tap into some of the grants and loans. And it seems like a lot of these grants, and if you guys hear of some, do let us know, but a lot of these grants, they want you to do something with education and the arts. And we said, we should try and go for funds and grants which which we can bring back to the Arts Foundation, and we can certainly support programs in the city that can help in education and bringing the arts to our city. So that was from the Arts Foundation. And then I just really want to say thank you to Joe and Stephen and Martin and everybody with the city. You have done a phenomenal job. You've made our lives so easy with all the information you have. I have sent you everything from basketball hoops and people playing to, suggestions from citizens on, social distancing, as well as small business questions and things like that. And I really appreciate how well, it's been handled. My questions have been answered, or we found a way to make it available to the community at large in terms of making it available on a website, giving us resources. So again, Joe, I'm very, very grateful, and I'm very proud of your leadership here and for what you've been doing here for the city during this tough time. So thank you.
I echo your comments, Sabina. On the mayor's breakfast, and I appreciate all the support also that Joe and in particular Stephen is giving that to come off every week. This coming Friday, Joe will be on again to give an update from the city's perspective. Candace will come on, our supervisor, talking about the county stuff. Rebecca Bauer-Kahn, our assemblywoman, will be on this week and talk about the state levels. Our state senator Glazier was on last week to give an update on the state stuff. We have the Stanford Healthcare CEO coming in to talk to us about the big picture on what's going on with healthcare. And then Dr. Patrick Joseph is going to return from last week. He was sort of our rock star last week, answering lots of questions that people had about healthcare. And then we also want to have somebody coming in along with Steve's help on the supply chain as it relates to our grocery stores, foods, and also our pharmacies, and having them answer the questions about how is the supply chain doing, especially here in the Valley, and are they seeing what the glitches have been and the things they're doing to try to solve that. And so we're trying to condense into an hour or so a quick update of what's going on here in the Valley. And thank you, Joe, for letting that happen once every week. And that was my report. Madam Clerk,
Item 16, adjournment.
is there a motion to adjourn?
Let's go.
Be safe, everybody.
Let's go.
All right. All those in favor signify by clicking off.